Good evening, y'all. This is Spencer Cack with the Hillbilly Think Tank. I am the educated hillbilly. No, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. Y'all, there have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies in Kentucky ever since my family came through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone. And I'm coming at you live from Central Kentucky, where we are dedicated to the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Of course, that's all that makes life worthwhile. And I am dedicated to service with honor. Therefore, I am running for magistrate here in Hardin County's 3rd District. Now, all politics is local. And so I was out today listening to folks talk about what we really need here in Hardin County. As I was out and about eating in local restaurants such as Woohoo, where you get some great gyros, or gyros, however you want to pronounce it. And while I was out there, I was talking to some of the folks in the restaurant about, hey, what do they think we really need here in Hardin County? And I heard things such as, hey, adult education. It's all fine and dandy. This person told me that we have lots of great stuff here for kids, for their education, for entertainment. But what about for low-income adults? What about, things for them to do, like, hey, dance lessons? If you're poor, does that mean you shouldn't be able to enjoy that in life? No, that sounded, very interesting. I agree. It is something that we should look at. She also said, hey, we need to finally get that public transportation to actually occur that the fiscal court has promised for years. She described to me what's like not having her own vehicle and relying on basically a glorified taxi service we have, where she gets charged by mile to ride the van that goes around the county. And so, yeah, that is something that we've definitely got to work on. But, everything is local, but are we going to be able to do anything important locally if locally our economy is crushed by this current administration's insane war? So I wonder if we all can think back to this person that said he is the master of the art of the deal, and that he would never make a deal with Iran that would pay Iran not to build nuclear weapons. And we all know that Jesus Donald Trump is now talking about giving Iran more money to not build nukes than Obama released from their frozen assets when Obama made a non-proliferation deal with Iran that Trump then shredded during his first term. And as you may recall, that original non-nuclear proliferation deal that was reached with Iran under President Obama's term was called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the JCPOA. Yeah, Captain Bone Spurs said it was the worst deal ever made. So he shredded it in his first term and says he's going to give us something that the world would be proud of. The entire world, he actually is quoted as saying, would be proud of what he would do instead of that JCPOA. Well, of course, now we know it's much easier to say something like that than to actually do it. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Iran has fired on 2 ships that tried to come through. Some Indian ships were told, hey, the strait is open by, Captain Bone Spurs said it was open. So they tried to go through and they were fired on by Iranian gunships. Well, this is the same Iranian Navy that we were told by Whiskey Pete Keg's Breath and Captain Bone Spurs they had decimated their Navy. Well, that Navy is stopping international trade through the Strait of Hormuz. So that is not true, right? But we know that the Obama era agreement, that JCPOA, was very complicated in its specifics, but it did have some simple lines that were drawn. So it had agreed, Iran had agreed to very serious limitations and restrictions on its nuclear program. And it allowed in, most importantly, international inspectors. And in return, they were given sanctions relief. So we also unfroze some of their money that had been frozen since the 70s. That was, of course, what the master of the deal referred to as being appalling. But, the most amazing thing is now the master of the deal is talking about giving Iran more money than they received when we unfroze their assets. Just giving it to them in order for them not to proliferate any more nuclear weapons. Now, they were also down to a very manageable amount of nuclear material. The amount that was agreed on could only have been used for nuclear reactors to produce energy for their country. That was it. Now, they've increased the amount they have by 90% since 2018 when Captain Bone Spurs shredded the JCPOA. So we've been worse off ever since he shredded that agreement. Now also, the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran didn't really have power over until Captain Bone Spurs and Whiskey Pete Keg's Breath started this war. Now they have far more to say about the Strait of Hormuz than they ever did before this war started. So, yeah, the president keeps on saying, war's on, war's off. We're going to bomb them into oblivion. Oh no, we're having peace negotiations. And we know, as I said last night, he's demanded the nuclear codes on Saturday. So he'll talk about peace on every Friday in order to get the markets to calm down and to get the revenues where he wants them for his family and friends, so they can do their insider trading deals. And then he goes nuclear crazy himself on the weekends. We get crazy midnight and 2:30 in the morning rants on his social media. So my question is, do you feel safer? Do you feel as if your economy nationally and then trickling down to our county is better under the guardians of the pedophiles' watch? I don't. I also find it interesting that in my comments, I've got so many people screaming at me about, hey, he's the commander in chief and he was elected as us. You know, I always find it interesting the people that make this commander in chief remark never say that when someone like President Obama is in the office. Then all they can do is talk absolute vile crap, like I used to see when I was on active duty in the military. But as soon as someone like Captain Bone Spurs or even George Bush are in office, oh, they're the greatest. And don't ever disparage those commanders in chiefs. Yeah, it's only good if their party's in power. They don't care to call the commander in chief if another party is in power. So that's hypocrisy. Just saying you have to listen to the commander in chief. They only really mean it if it's their party in power. So I raised concerns when Bill Clinton was in office. I did not support NAFTA when he was in office. I didn't support anything he did that wasn't helping out regular working Americans. I did support him saving Social Security like he did. He made it completely solvent. But then what happened when George Bush came into power? He started a war and he paid for it with Social Security funds, which were never supposed to be touched for anything but Social Security payments. And yet he dipped into them to pay for a war that he couldn't have otherwise gotten allocations for. When I say he started a war, I'm talking about the one in Iraq. The one in Afghanistan, hey, he didn't start that, but he also didn't finish it like he should have. Took our eye off the ball to go for Iran's neighbor. Here we go again. More unnecessary excursions overseas that destroy our economy. We saw how Bush's continuous wars destroyed our economy. His second term, and here we go, second term of Trump, and our economy is suffering. Our daily lives here in Hardin County are feeling the effects of this administration's pummeling us at the gas pumps, at the grocery stores, with the cost of paying more than we should because of the tariffs that he placed on things. So I want us to have a county with prosperity. But to do that, we've got to decide nationally and locally to change our course. We can't keep steering the direction we're steering with the crew we're steering with. It's that obvious. All right, y'all. Like and subscribe. And let's remember, in order to stay united, as our Kentucky motto says, united we stand, divided we fall. In order to be united and not divided, we've got to realize it's all of us working folks that really make this county, this state, and this country thrive. It's not the billionaires. So we've got to wrest back power from the billionaire class, the Epstein class, the pedophile class. Take back power from them. So vote for me for Magistrate, District 3. Again, like and subscribe if you would to the channel. In order to not be divided, remember we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper. Let's remember everyone deployed overseas. Bless your corazon. Have a great evening and a great rest of this hump day, which is almost over.
Because when the bank foreclosed on farms across